Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here today because we're going to take a highly structured and honestly truly fascinating look into one of history's most enduring and profoundly logical philosophical systems. We're talking about the Noble Eightfold Path. So if you're someone who loves organized information that you can actually take and apply directly to your life, well, you are in for a real treat. I want you to think about this for a moment. Is there a universal prescription for human dissatisfaction? It's a pretty bold thought, right? But what if a 2,500-year-old diagnosis could effectively cure our modern existential crises? What if those heavy feelings of stress, the anxiety, that endless sense of grasping we all experience today were entirely predictable and, more importantly, totally treatable? So here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the middle way prescription, then we'll decode the terms right and appropriate. From there, we'll cover the threefold training structure, dive straight into the 8 path factors, and finally wrap up by comparing traditional versus secular approaches.
Okay, Section 1, the middle way prescription.
Okay, let's dive into this. To really grasp where this all comes from, we have to travel way back to 6th century BCE northern India. Siddhartha Gautama, who you probably know as the Buddha, was a man who essentially ran the ultimate A/B test on human happiness. Literally. He started out with extreme hedonism. The guy was a prince, completely surrounded by immense luxury, indulging in every sensual pleasure imaginable. But he realized pretty quickly it was completely unprofitable for lasting happiness. It just left him constantly grasping for the next thing. So he flipped the script to the exact opposite extreme, asceticism. He essentially starved himself, engaging in severe self-mortification, basically trying to torture himself into enlightenment. But he realized that too was a total dead end. It was just painful, self-afflicting, and frankly got him nowhere. Through this incredibly intense personal experience, he discovered a balanced alternative, the middle way, a path that cleanly avoids both of those unprofitable extremes. He structured this profound realization in a way that classic commentators actually compared to ancient medical methodology. It's known as the Four Noble Truths. First step, you have the diagnosis. Human life contains inherent suffering, or dukkha. Second, the etiology or the root cause, our endless craving. Third, the prognosis. The good news here is that a cure is absolutely possible. We really can achieve a cessation of that craving. And finally, step 4, the prescription. This is the specific therapeutic regimen designed to cure the disease of suffering. And that prescription? That is the Eightfold Path. It's not just a theory, it is a highly practical, totally active treatment plan. Section 2, decoding right and appropriate. Before we look at the actual 8 steps of the prescription, we really need to dismantle a massive Western misconception. When you hear the Noble Eightfold Path, you almost always hear each step prefaced with the word right. Right view, right action, and so on. But the original Pali word is sama. And it doesn't mean right in some dogmatic, morally judgmental way. It actually means proper, appropriate, integral, or skillful. Think of it less like a rigid moral commandment handed down from a cosmic judge and way more like an objective measure of effectiveness. Seriously, if you are trying to unlock a front door, you need the appropriate key. You can't use a banana. A banana isn't evil, it's just completely unskillful for the task. It won't work. The Eightfold Path is all about using the appropriate tools that functionally work to reduce your suffering. Section 3, the threefold training structure. Now that we have the proper lens on this, let's look at how these 8 factors are actually organized. I just love how logically this is all laid out. To prevent us from getting totally overwhelmed by a massive list of 8 things, the path is neatly divided into 3 interconnected buckets, or trainings. First, we have wisdom, which contains 2 factors. Second, we have ethical conduct, containing 3 factors. And third, mental discipline, which also contains 3 factors. It is a complete, holistic system that covers your intellect, your outward behavior, and your internal mental state. And this brings us to a vital concept. This path, it is not a linear, step-by-step ladder where you finish step 1, check it off, and move to step 2. Not at all. It is comparable to a multi-stranded cable, where every single strand simultaneously supports and is supported by the others. Think of it as a dynamic cybernetic feedback loop. Your ethical conduct ensures you aren't rocked with daily guilt, right? Which then supports your mental discipline so you can actually sit still and meditate. That deep concentration then generates profound wisdom, and that new wisdom, in turn, goes back and refines your ethical conduct even further. Every single strand is reinforcing the others simultaneously. Section 4, the 8 path factors. All right, with that structural framework in place, let's get into the actual medicine and see how these factors practically apply to our lives. We kick things off with the wisdom training, which really serves as our cognitive compass. It starts with right view. Now, this isn't just blindly believing in a doctrine, it is a cognitive alignment with reality. It's deeply understanding cause and effect and truly seeing the impermanent nature of life as laid out in the Four Noble Truths. And this view naturally gives rise to the second factor, right intention. Once you see reality clearly, you naturally develop the active resolve to move away from self-centered grasping. You start cultivating intentions of goodwill and harmlessness, rather than ill will or cruelty. Your mind is kind of like a garden, and right intention is the act of deliberately pulling up the weeds of delusion. Next up, we move out into the physical world with ethical conduct. So the crucial point is that ethical behavior isn't about scoring points for the afterlife. It actually creates freedom from remorse, which is an absolute prerequisite for a stable mind. It includes right speech, meaning abstaining from lies, slander, harsh words, and even just idle chatter, and instead speaking truthfully and kindly. Then, right action, abstaining from taking life, stealing, and sexual misconduct. It's ensuring our physical body isn't an instrument for greed or harm. Finally, right livelihood. This one is fascinating because it proves this whole system isn't just for monks sitting in a cave. It means avoiding trades that harm others. Traditionally, that meant things like selling weapons or poisons, but in a modern sense, it means avoiding professions that exploit social structures or cause systemic harm. Basically, how you make your living cannot be separated from your spiritual progress. The third bucket brings us back inward to mental discipline. This starts with right effort, arousing the actual, literal energy to abandon unwholesome states of mind and actively cultivate wholesome ones. You really have to put the work in. This effort powers right mindfulness, which is that diligent, non-judgmental awareness of your body, your feelings, and your mental qualities right in the present moment. It's the ability to track your mental states without getting completely swept away by them. And all of this culminates in right concentration, the ability to unify your attention and achieve deep meditative stability. It is in this concentrated stillness that your mind essentially becomes a laboratory, allowing you to directly experience the reality you conceptualized way back in step 1, right view. Section 5. Traditional versus secular approaches. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the interpretation of this 2,500-year-old prescription has evolved to meet the needs of people today, branching into two slightly different approaches. Over in traditional Buddhism, the primary goal is deeply religious, attaining nirvana and ending the cycle of rebirth entirely. The main focus is on complete individual liberation from samsara, which is the cycle of suffering. By contrast, secular Buddhism interprets these exact same 8 factors through a much more modern, psychological lens. The primary goal here is human flourishing and transforming society right now. The focus is heavily on reducing our emotional reactivity and finding profound happiness and meaning in this current life, rather than focusing on the next one. But here's the thing, both use the exact same cybernetic loop of the Eightfold Path. They're just aimed at slightly different horizons. And that brings us to the end of our explainer today, but I want to leave you with a thought. You don't have to adopt this entire system overnight, but ask yourself, how could applying just one appropriate factor, maybe focusing intensely on skillful speech for just 1 week, or totally reevaluating the impact of your livelihood, how could that radically shift your own personal ecosystem today? If this path really is a multi-stranded cable, well, tugging on just one positive thread might just elevate your entire life. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this incredible framework. Keep learning, keep structuring your knowledge, and I will see you in the next explainer.